Wonderful.
Hi, guys.
Well, welcome, everybody. My name is Kirsty Styles. That is Styles as in Harry, for all the One Direction fans, no doubt, in the room.
Are you related?
We're actually married.
Congratulations.
Sorry, everyone. He's taken. Welcome to your penultimate conversation of the day. I know that we're keeping you from Eric and we're keeping you from beer as well, but I hope we're going to have a great chat with my special guest today. So I am the editor of the New Statesman's new B2B technology website, NS Tech, and I'm joined today by the lovely Julia Hartz, who is the new CEO and the founder, of course, of Eventbrite. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. I think this is my fourth or fifth startup grind I've been around the world. I'm on tour with Startup Grind, and I just don't know it. But I love the community and just what this team does. So thank you for having me.
And you've been at the Palace, and you're going to Downing Street. This is like a rock star tour for you this week, right?
No, it's more of a pinch me moment. I'm having so much fun in London. We have 40 people here now, and I actually haven't been here for 2 years somehow. And so the progress that we've made here is astounding. That team has been working so hard. So that's truly been my most favorite part of the week.
Cool. Well, we've probably thrown up a few disgusting buildings in between now and then, so familiarise yourself again. Julia, as was already just mentioned, has been named in Forbes 40 Under 40. Sorry, age.
You don't have to.
One of the most powerful women entrepreneurs in the world, no pressure. And now you've taken the reins as the new CEO from your husband, Kevin, of $1 billion startup, your brand, Eventbrite. So, can you just tell us from the beginning, you and Kevin are there with Renau as well, your third non-married co-founder. That would be a weird conversation. Can you tell us what the original problem was that you set out to solve and why no one had thought of something which appears so simple before?
Sure. So in 2006, Renaud Visage, who I call the bravest man on the planet for starting a company with a couple, and Kevin and I, who were engaged at the time, so we actually founded the company and got married in the same year. So we just celebrated our 10-year wedding anniversary. We wanted to solve a problem which was really the problem of not having a platform that was easily accessible or self-service to sell tickets to events. And essentially, our vision was to democratize ticketing. And if you think about ticketing as an industry, you don't really get warm, fuzzy feelings. You maybe think about high fees that you pay as a ticket buyer, or the really bad experience that you have trying to get a ticket, or the lack of innovation. And so when we looked at the industry as a total, we knew that we could harness the power of technology to really make it possible for anybody to both sell tickets to events and also have a delightful experience. And ticketing was the thing. That was what we were focused on specifically. Kevin's background was he came from PayPal as a seed investor and then started a transactional company called Xoom, XOOM, International Money Transfer Company. And so we were really interested in that transactional element. And fast forward 10 years later, one of the most profound things is that we actually did what we set out to do, but we also have gone beyond ticketing. And we're really covering a much broader part of the event life cycle for our organizers, as well as engaging millions of ticket buyers. And I think that that journey has been really rewarding for us, but it also was a testament of proving that there might be true value in the broad mid-market of events. I think one of the reasons why we were able to succeed and gain traction was because nobody was really paying attention to this market. They were paying attention to the high end of the market and eventually to birthday parties and sort of the more social end. But in the middle, that was really the area that we wanted to cater to. And last year we ticketed 2.1 million events around the world, and we have a lot of opportunity for growth. So that is a pretty sizable market.
Oh, so I mean, I'd love to look at the stats as to how many startups versus how many marriages last 10 years. But you're doing well on both counts, right?
Thank you. We are so far. Thank you.
And congratulations on the wedding anniversary. So you are now a billion-dollar company, a unicorn, some might call it, and processing millions of tickets every single day in 180 countries. How has the company changed over the last decade in terms of how your processes, your skills, and your infrastructure? You know, would you recognize the Eventbrite that you started with in 2006 to now?
Well, I'll describe the Eventbrite that we started in physically. So it was a windowless phone closet in a warehouse in Potrero Hill in San Francisco, which is sort of a design district. And it was just the three of us co-founders. And we bootstrapped the company. So it was just the three of us for the first 2 years. And we didn't actually hire a team until year 3. And we didn't raise a formal VC round until year 4. And so people-wise, it looks a lot different. We now have 575 what we call Britelings around the world in 10 different offices. And I think that's one of the biggest differences. When we set out, we really wanted to build a global company. And so we built Eventbrite with an eye towards being able to launch in different markets around the world. And we are we have 6 different offices in Europe. We have 2 offices in Latin America and an office in Australia. And I talk about the office thing because although we sell tickets to 180 countries, to truly gain traction in a market, it takes people for us. And so we actually probably didn't know that in the beginning, and that's a lesson that we've learned. So it is somewhat of a people-intensive business to get it right on a global scale. And so it looks much different in that regard. And then finally, I sort of talked about the technology covering a larger part of the event life cycle. But you know, Eventbrite now has everything from discovery of new live experiences all the way through to at event RFID entry management, venue management. So we do a lot more than just the ticketing now. And I think that has grown over time, and that maybe wasn't even in our original vision to begin with.
Cool. And so one of the key things that you've spoken to a lot is how you create a great culture. You are the 7 times best company to work for in San Francisco, and that's built with a load of millennials who are notoriously not excited about working at companies as they kind of exist today. So practically, how do you create that culture on a global scale? Is it kind of muffins and free Coke?
It's all about carbs and sugar. No, it's interesting actually. So that's a local award for us in San Francisco, and it means a lot. It's really important to us because it is based on employee surveys. But the one that I'm also really excited about is a new award. It's been a 10-year goal for me to have Eventbrite on one of the Fortune Best Great Places to Work list, and we were named on the Great Places to Work for Millennials list last year. And so as a company that is 75% millennials, I was very excited about that, and it was sort of one of those milestones that we've achieved that I'll never forget. But I think our culture has grown organically, and I'll tell you about the point that I realized culture would be really important. That was when we were a team of 30 people growing to a team of 100, to a company of 100 people. In my mind, that's sort of how I saw it. We were going to do that in less than a year, and this was after we raised our first round from Sequoia Capital. And so at that point, I inherently knew through sort of what I'd heard and what I'd seen with other startups in our cohort, meaning the other startups that were founded around the same time as us, that scaling a team is really hard, and a lot of times the culture can take the hit. You may lose your identity or create a culture that you need to then correct. And so that's when I really keyed in on what would make our company great. And without a doubt, it's how you do things and the people you gather, right, in your community. And so Eventbrite's culture is actually not set in stone. I know that it has its own reputation, which is great, but it evolves forward all the time because it truly is a manifestation of every single person in the company at any given time, and that's constantly changing. And then, of course, on this global scale, it's really interesting for me to see the differences and the nuances in the teams, but then understand the core values that bring us together. So being with the team here in London and soon in Berlin, it's exciting to see what pulls through, but also some of the differences. And what's really important to me, finally, on a global scale is to respect and honor the local culture and weave that into the core culture of Eventbrite, and not try to force the Eventbrite culture into a local culture where it won't blend very well.
And you must have people banging down your door wanting to get hired by you guys, given the kind of reputation for being a great place to work. Do you actually get involved now in any of the kind of hiring processes? And are there any kind of red flags when you're like, this person's a high flyer, but good gracious, they're not for me?
Well, Kevin and I used to meet with every final round candidate, which was really great for a few years. I think that was between sort of, I guess, employee number 4, all the way to about 300 employees. Now that we're global and we're scaling, to a bigger company, we meet with key talent as needed. So basically, the team knows that we can jump on a plane, hang out, or jump into a conference room at any given time to help close a candidate. Recruiting is the most important thing that we do as an organization, and it's a muscle that we truly believe in continuing to build and always exercising. So for me, it's about how can I be there for the team to really help close a candidate. But our culture and our hiring has scaled to a point where I trust the team. It's not about telling them that they shouldn't hire someone. It's more about selling the Eventbrite vision and connecting with key candidates.
Oh, are you a kind of Slack-based company now? Have you, are you managing your teams, remotely, and or is email still a thing there?
So we're kind of in this awkward place. I'm not sure if other people have this issue, but Slack took off organically with both our engineering and customer support teams, especially since both of those teams have a high concentration of people outside of San Francisco. So for engineering, we're in Mendoza, Argentina, San Francisco, and Nashville. Customer support is really all over the world, but Nashville, San Francisco, and Europe. And they were early adopters of the product. And I think many people understand this. It spread like wildfire. And we're huge fans of Slack. They actually are our subtenants. They're our roommates in San Francisco. So we cohabitate, I guess. But it's, we're also on email. So I feel that there's this weird in-between place, and I'm not quite sure what to do with it. So if anybody has any great ideas, I'm all ears. But I think streamlining communication and having a central hub and making sure everybody's getting the same information at the same time, preferably in real time, is really important. So we do things like live stream our all hands at a time where almost everyone can join. Or we have a weekly update that goes out to the entire company. Kevin and I speak to everybody once a week during a half an hour Q&A. It has a really cheesy name. It's called Heart to Hartz. We didn't come up with it, but it's stuck, unfortunately. And we do that on an international basis on Google Hangout early in the morning and then in the afternoon. So I think just communication in general is incredibly important, especially if you're not all, in San Francisco, we're all on one floor still, which is really nice, but especially if you're all over the world, it's critical.
Okay, well, I'm profoundly impressed with these people like you who are jet setting. I do not know how you do it, but Julia, you're also a female CEO and one of the only female CEOs of a truly successful startup. How important is it for you to have a diverse kind of range of voices, whether that's women or other folks around the table if you're building a global product? And do you feel like you have to kind of bang the drum? Is this still something that people need to know in San Francisco and people need to know in kind of startup world?
Well, it's really interesting. I think Eventbrite is almost 50-50 female-male, and that's happened organically. I guess that tells me that role models are really important. I think that modeling is sort of the most potent form of influence, and I think the more we can have strong female leaders, everything from our board to myself to all the way through the organization, the more we'll keep attracting a balanced talent pool. But it goes far beyond gender. So at Eventbrite, gender is not an issue in terms of equal share of voice, which is great. But we also want to be fully inclusive of every diverse thinking I want to tap into the global talent pool, and that's really, really important. So I think about it in two ways. Where can I find the best talent? And I'm open to anywhere. And how can I create an inclusive environment and make sure that we're not hiring just people that look like ourselves? Because that's also a problem. If you start to just hire by network effect and referrals, oftentimes you won't see that diversity. So we keep an eye on that, and we make sure that we get very, very exact in our hiring metrics and processes. And
is
so
that because it makes a better product? The head of diversity at Facebook was talking about building a product for 1 billion people, and if your team doesn't reflect that, then you're missing bits and bobs that you just would never have thought of.
I think it's really obvious that it makes for a better service and a better product and a better company. So at the end of the day, as CEO of Eventbrite, I'm interested in building a great company that's built to last. And in my mind, our company should look like the people that we serve and look like the world. And so, we're on that journey. I wouldn't say that we've got it completely figured out, but we go about it honestly, I guess.
Cool. And a final question. We are running out of time, but we've seen a slowdown in tech IPOs, although we have now just seen LinkedIn get bought by Microsoft. Big headlines, very sexy proposition from those two, I'm sure. How do these kinds of conditions affect what you guys are thinking about next? Obviously, you and Kevin and Renau have put your hearts and souls into this, you put your marriage into this. What is next for Eventbrite?
Well, we lived through the 2008-2009 period, and so we've always thought about future-proofing the business, and we're almost fortunate to have operated Eventbrite through a hard time before. I can't say that this year was a surprise to us. We actually, in the end of 2014, started to really take strong measures to get to profitability. And so coming into this year with a strong balance sheet and a path to profitability was a good call. And it definitely felt like we were future-proofing our business. And I think about it this way. We'll be cash flow break even by the end of the year. I know that Dropbox just made a pretty great announcement around that, and I'm really proud of that team. But profitability is really important. It's also incredibly important to sustain your growth rate. So profitable growth is the new term du jour in Silicon Valley. And I'm proud of us for achieving that over the course of the last 18 months and sort of getting what seemed like a head start on it. But it's really about driving optionality. So when we get to profitability, it's not like all of our problems are solved. I more think about it as it provides more options for us and helps to sustain our independence and hopefully future-proof the business to grow even further into years to come. And so I'm already past that point and looking out further on the horizon. But it is certainly an interesting year.
Wonderful. Well, we have to leave it there. I have to say, I once tweeted Eventbrite about 4 years ago and asked if I could become some kind of honorary lifetime achiever for going to so many different Eventbrite events. So this is a particularly exciting conversation for me to have been able to have.
I'd love to celebrate you. I'll give you a badge backstage. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Good to see you.